People's Progressive Party wishes to remind that the resolution of legal disputes in relation to the composition of our Parliament is central to our democracy and is a matter of paramount national importance. In recognition, the law mandates that these matters be resolved with every convenient speed. In this regard, the PPP welcomes the positive movements which have recently taken place in the Guyana Court of Appeal in relation to the legal challenge filed against Winston Felix and Keith Scott, who hold seats as non-elected members of the National Assembly. The party notes that the way is now clear for an early date to be fixed for the hearing of the appeal filed by the Attorney General. The PPP anxiously awaits this date. It is our hope that the Attorney General will not attempt to delay and stall this matter further, as has been his strategy in relation to all political cases filed by us since May 2015. The party further repeats its concerns in relation to the delay which has afflicted the hearing and determination of our elections petition filed against the May 2015 regional and general elections. The latest bout of delay is being caused by the Chief Elections Officer. The PPP again wishes to highlight the fact that the Chief Elections Officer, as a formal party to the proceedings, ought not to enter the arena. His role is to facilitate a fair and speedy determination of the elections petition. His role is an impartial one, as prescribed by the Constitution in total disregard of his impartial role and function. The Chief Elections Officer filed proceedings to strike out the elections petition. This is unprecedented by a Chief Elections Officer. When his challenge is dismissed, he then files an appeal, another unprecedented move. Worse yet, in our view, no appeal lies against the order which dismissed his challenge. Also, in our view, he has filed the appeal in the wrong court, the full court of the High Court. As a result, the party is now burdened with the task of addressing all these technical legal matters which have the cumulative effect of preventing our elections petition from being heard. So even at the level of challenging the elections in accordance with the law, GECOM is adopting a partisan position and seems to be in a conspiracy to prevent the court from reviewing the electoral process and machinery which GECOM administered in relation to the 2015 elections. This is clearly a travesty. The PPP specifically requests the diplomatic community to note the concerns which the party have raised in relation to these matters. The next statement is as follows. The People's Progressive Party salutes International Human Rights Day 2016. Human rights are not an entitlement or a privilege. They are inalienable fundamental rights of every human being, man, woman, or child, and include political, civil, economic, social, and cultural rights. According to the United Nations Office of the High Commissioner on Human Rights, quote, human rights are rights inherent in all human beings, whatever our nationality, place of residence, sex, national or ethnic origin, color, religion, language, or any other status. We are equally entitled to our human rights without discrimination. These rights are interrelated, interdependent, and indivisible, end of quote. Whether enshrined in national constitutions or other legal frameworks or not, human rights remain innate and are not bestowed upon. The recourse to the international system of justice bequeathed upon individuals was unprecedented and laid the foundation for several similar protocols to other human rights instruments, which focus on specific issues of international concern. These include conventions on the elimination of all forms of racial discrimination, on the elimination of all forms of discrimination against women, on the rights of the child, on the rights of migrant workers, on the rights of persons with disabilities, and the Convention against torture, etc. It is disconcerting, to say the least, that despite the fact that all independent countries of the world have signed the Charter of the United Nations, and that most of them are signatories to many human rights conventions mentioned above, widespread violations of fundamental human rights in many parts of our world continue unabated. The most sacrosanct right, that is, the right to life, is being snatched away indiscriminately. The Middle East has been transformed into a war zone, all in the name of democracy. The so-called Islamic State, or ISIS, a creature raging out of this chaos, is wreaking havoc on the innocent. Boko Haram is capturing and killing its own Nigerian brothers and sisters, and like ISIS, is subjecting women and girls into sexual slavery while converting young boys into child soldiers. Afghanistan is still a boiling pot for terrorist attacks on those who dare to challenge the Taliban, but more so on those who wish to continue their lives peacefully. Guyana became a full member of the international community upon gaining independence in 1966, and has since signed and ratified numerous international conventions and treaties, including those pertaining to the protection of human rights. In the 1990s, Guyana became one of the 115 member states that ratified the optional protocol to the Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. This was no light gesture, as the protocol allows for individual citizens to take to task the government of the day by lodging complaints with the Human Rights Committee if they feel that their rights have been or are being violated. With the coming to power of the APNU-AFC coalition in May 2015, the human rights of Guyanese citizens are being shunned and flayed with every passing day. The upsurge in gun-related crimes has made a mockery of the most fundamental of all rights, that is, the right to life. Guyanese are being subjected to the whims and fancies of trigger-happy criminals, many of whom are youths, and lives are indiscriminately taken. The perpetrators of the Lusignan and Batika massacres have been praised by the then opposition now in government as freedom fighters. Our right to freedom from fear, as enshrined in the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, is being trampled upon by criminals who are emboldened by indiscriminate pardons and encouraging rhetoric such as, "Is our time now?" The inability of, or more accurately put, the lack of attempt by the authorities to curb domestic violence and violence against women and children is nothing else but gross negligence. It represents an attitudinal behavior demeaning to more than one-half of our population. The whole slate of dismissal of persons perceived to be supporters of the PPPC administration and the thousands of young Amerindians by the current regime since its assumption to high office reeks of political and racial discrimination, another blatant violation of our fundamental human rights, the right to work and be treated as equals. The numerous commissions of inquiry set up by the Granger regime are tantamount to political witch hunting, while the recent attempt to usurp property owned by private citizens is in direct contravention to our Constitution, which enshrines our fundamental right to own property. The forceful removal of vendors from various parts of the city without providing alternatives, as well as the planned closure of the sugar industry, demonstrates a lack of care and concern for thousands of our citizens who are trying to eke out a living. Condoning such thoughtless acts is a reflection as to of the incompetence and cluelessness of the APNUFC administration as to the multiplier effect such moves have on especially those living in poverty and on the fringes of society. People are forced to engage in various types of illegal activities and other social ills such as stealing, begging, prostitution, child labor, just to mention a few. The People's Progressive Party, on the occasion of International Human Rights Day, December the 10th, vehemently condemns all actions that violates human rights and human dignity. It calls on all perpetrators to desist from committing heinous crimes against other human beings, to exercise restraint, and to treat others as equals. The party also calls on the APNUFC administration to stop the witch hunting and the cheap and defensive political rhetoric, and to start focusing on ensuring that our people's fundamental right to freedom from fear and freedom from want are honored. The recent budget presentation tells us that we should expect more breaches of the Guyanese people's fundamental economic, cultural, and social rights. Thank you. Questions, please, on the statements.
Yes, sir. Sir, a couple of months ago, at this forum, I asked you to just give us the names of some of these people who were persecuted for political affiliation, and some of those who've been witch hunted. Are you in a position to do so now, sir?
We will soon be in a position. You will soon be in a position. It's a long list, Adam. What will you do with it?
I'll give you a couple of names.
No, but what will you do with it? Will you publish all?
No, we would challenge the administration.
You would?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, I'm glad for that assurance.
Good. And the next thing, sir, you talked about the people who perpetrated the Barticum massacre and the Lusignan massacre, sir.
Yeah.
And you said that the then opposition, which is now in government, hailed them as freedom fighters.
Yeah.
How would you react to the fact, sir, that the very opposition then government now is prosecuting these people? One already got a big jail sentence. How do you react to that, sir?
Well, I don't know if it dare prosecute. I don't think the government, the executive, is prosecuting the people. The people were in prison for a considerable amount of time, and the court has now decided to hear the cases. So I don't think the executive had any, if the executive had some influence in the matter, then that would be a serious matter for the executive to interfere in the court proceedings or to dictate to the court that the time has come for the trial to be held. So I don't think the executive, I'm not so sure, maybe if you have other information, that the executive had some influence in prosecuting these people. You know, that's a totally independent matter.
Then it brings us to the point of an issue that happened a couple of years back, going as far back as 1992. Anand Sanasi, sir.
Who?
Anand Sanasi was charged with treason. He fled this country, escaped from the police, ended up in Venezuela, came back when this government was in office. Bernard DeSantis was the...
Which government? This AP and
The
UFC?
PPP government.
Oh, you said this government.
Sorry, when the PPP government
Oh,
started. And the PPP intervened to have all charges against him dropped.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that...
The PPP?
Yes, sir. You said that... Janet
No.
Jackson, I think, said that... Yeah, well, you can remember the issue.
No, I remember the issue, but I don't recall that it was the PPP as a political party that intervened to have the charges dropped. I don't recall that particular one. The PPP as a political party intervened in a court matter to have the charges dropped.
The PPP government intervened.
What form and shape does this governmental intervention take?
You stated, and the record will show that you said there is no threat of treason by Anand Senasi, and he should be free.
Me?
Man, you're making this thing.
No, I'm trying to get specifics.
The PPP government.
No, man, you got to be specific when you're talking at press
Yeah,
conferences.
The PPP government
Uh-huh.
insisted that charges against Anand Senasi be dropped, and he walked.
No, but hold on a minute. Could you explain to me? I mean, I don't want this to be a backward and forward in between myself and Adam Harris. Could you explain or expand a little further on the modus operandi through which the PPP intervened in this way you're describing?
You're talking about government information and the trial of people.
Yes, I
And
know.
you said
I
that
know what we're talking about.
Yeah, and you say it would have been rather strange or wrong or something for the government to intervene into the
And then
trial.
you're drawing a parallel with Anand Senasi.
With the government
But
intervened.
you are telling me this, but I can't confirm or deny that. I cannot. I don't have that information before me.
But if you're the one who said you were aware of the matter,
No, I said I was aware of the matter, meaning the Senasi versus whoever.
you're not going to answer this question.
I am not aware of the details in connection with this matter.
All right. I ain't going to push you. You know what happened and I know what happened.
Any other question?
Nobody want to ask I am over this thing.
Maybe it's a Monday morning, so.
Yeah. But you know, this coming day Monday morning.
Hmm.
Back to the witch hunting.
Hmm.
Are you in a position to say whether there are people who are knowingly affiliated in the PPP who continue to serve in the public service and government offices and what have you today, sir?
The government will have to say that because
No,
they
you
would
don't.
know. No, I don't know of any. I don't know of any. Maybe they are, but I don't know them.
You don't know Mrs. Rohey, sir?
Mrs. Rohey is a member of the PPP?
Isn't she, sir?
No, Mrs. Rohey is not a member of the PPP. Mrs.
By
Rohey,
affiliation, is she?
no, Mrs. Rohey Mrs. Rohey is a professional public servant. Since she left school, she joined the public service for years.
She wasn't witch hunted.
I am saying that people who are perceived to be members of the PPP or supporters of the PPP, maybe she's not perceived in that light.
All right. And she isn't known to be a supporter, sir.
Well, it's for the government to establish that, whether they know that she is a supporter or not.
You know
That what?
that whether she's a supporter?
No, you got to ask her that.
I like this way.
The lady has security of tenure under the public service rules.
That's true.
Yeah.
And she's my friend.
Okay, well, I'm happy to hear that.
And you know she and my sister were body.
I know that very well, yeah.
Nobody anything. This same human rights situation, sir. You talk about the guns, you talk about the forceful removal of vendors. Now, if a vendor is operating on a sidewalk, that's an illegality. To forcefully remove such a person, sir, does that really stand up as an attack against the human rights of these people?
See, in a developing country such as ours, people have to eke out a living. They do it in different ways. Once is not considered to be a criminal activity. So for decades we've had people, doing different things, and the administration turned a Nelson eye on these matters. So that I don't see how you see, we cannot apply force wall standards in our country. So people have to be accommodated. The coconut vendor has to be accommodated. The person selling iced water, I didn't want to say ice water, iced water at the street corner have to be accommodated as well, because, and there's so many others. So if you really examine the social and economic status of these people, when you take them out from that economic activity, what are you pushing them to do? So I think we have to be careful that we don't apply force wall standards in a country such as ours until such time when the tide rises and everybody rises with the tide. In a situation where you have the tide is rising for some, high tide for some and low tide for others, that can't work, because the low tide that is affecting or where others are swimming, they have to swim to survive. Yeah. Adam, it seems to me that you might have to have a clinic for many of these youngsters.
No, perhaps they know you gotta go to Parliament at 10.
No. Parliament don't affect my work here. I have a whole hour. I dedicate a whole hour.
Let me go. You got a problem with the issue of the Elections Commission, your motion against the Elections Commission.
Yeah.
The AG, you say filed an appeal, but you said the Chief Elections Officer filed the matter in the wrong court, and that's delaying the process. How is that possible?
Well, I don't know how. No, I don't know how or who advised him to file the proceedings in that particular court. But the thing is now that you have to argue a case for that case to come out of that court. The court is not going to voluntarily give up the case to another court. Legal arguments now have to take, whether it was intentionally done or done through ignorance, this will be determined at the end of the court hearings as to how this matter ended up in the wrong court. But the courts simply don't deliver up a case onto another court unless the two contending parties argue why it is here and why it ought not to be here.
But the very court more often than not sits and say, this is the wrong court, we will not hear the matter, and that's the end of the story? After
the argument, because the person who filed the case in that court might very well have legal arguments to back up his reason for doing so. So the court has to hear what are the legal arguments that encourage you to file this case in this court rather than filing it in another court. So we will continue protesting in front of the High Court to have our petition heard. Of course, in the next few days are going to be very busy with the budget and also with our party Congress. So, and then they have the Christmas season, the season of glad tidings and great joy. Hoping that some Christmas goodies will be shared around. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.